You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Hello, it's us again, Tiffany and Gerald on the Work It podcast. Gerald, quick question for you. Last week, our guest said that it usually takes about 3 to 6 months to find a job. What's the longest you've seen someone take to get employed again?
Wow, it can be very long. I've seen people who took 1 year or more to get a job.
Wow.
But usually the situations are very specific. There are certain circumstances behind it. For example, they could be taking a break or hunting for a very specific role. That's why they have to wait for a little while, especially if it's a senior role. So there's usually a reason for the long wait.
Understand, okay. Well, I know a few people who are looking for a job, but they say that the job market isn't that great at the moment. A couple of younger people are also telling me that they are just saying yes to any work that comes their way because recruiters are asking for experience and unfortunately they don't have anything to show for that.
Oh, which is why today we want to ask, right? Is it harder for recruiters now to find a good match? And how do you stand up in the sea of job applicants? With us today in the studio to talk about this is Sumita Tandon. She is the HR Director of APAC at LinkedIn. So welcome to the show, Sumita.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Sumita, LinkedIn recently put out some data from your survey among job seekers and HR professionals. And one thing that jumped out to me is that 53% say that their job search has become harder in the last year. But 6 in 10 HR professionals say it's harder to find qualified talent. So people want jobs, but recruiters are saying they aren't the right fit. Help me to understand what's causing the frustration on both ends here.
What we are seeing is that nearly 7 out of 10 people want to look for a new job. They're planning to look for a new job this year. But the response rate that they're hearing back from companies is much lower, which is leading to their frustration. On the other side of the spectrum, it's the employers who are just not being able to find that right balance of technical skills along with soft skills. And the landscape of the job market is changing so much and so quickly, which is leading to this frustration and this mismatch.
So what are employers specifically looking out for? I mean, you talk about the hard skills and soft skills, but are there certain skills specifically that they are looking for?
What we are seeing is that this mismatch is partly driven by changes in the skills and the roles that the businesses need. So, for example, globally what we are seeing is that hiring for AI talent has surged more than 300% globally over the last 8 years. And in APAC, we are expecting skills to change by 70% by 2030 due to GAI compared to 52% without it. This is a 18 percentage point faster pace of transformation. Now, if you look at overall economic landscape as well, companies are wanting to balance some of their hiring plans. And what we are sensing is that they will invest in technology, in upskilling and reskilling their existing workforce versus prioritizing headcount growth.
Oh, okay.
So what that means is, at least what we see is that headcount is going to remain relatively flat. Now, when that happens and companies invest internally, it's the job seekers who are going to face the challenge of frustration, not getting a response back, applying to more jobs, but, reaching that point where they start settling, which should not be the case, in my opinion.
Interesting. So you are saying that rather than spend money on hiring more manpower, companies would try to put money into upskilling their existing workforce.
Yes, that's right. And again, it's because your job is changing on you, even if you are not changing your job. So companies that will upskill and reskill their employees will also end up retaining their employees. And I think that's where the focus is going to go versus looking at incremental growth and more growth of headcount. The attention is going to shift towards employee retention and upskilling their existing workforce.
Well, that's good if you plan to stay, right?
Yes.
But if you are looking for a job and you are looking to move, then it really sounds like AI.
Yeah.
AI skills is a must-have. Is that what the data is showing?
Yes, in fact, let me talk to you about what we are seeing in APAC. What we are seeing is our jobs on the rise list has shown us that we've just published that this year's roles globally, there are 70% new roles that are in demand.
And 70% of these new roles are AI focused?
Let me talk to you about Singapore. Yes, roles like artificial intelligence engineer and environment, health and safety manager are among the most in demand. That was not the case until a couple of years ago. So these are the specific skills and roles that are growing in demand that we are seeing in our data.
Okay.
So it's AI and sustainability types of roles.
AI and sustainability, yes.
Which we have talked about in a previous episode as well. But let's say somebody who is young, who's just starting out, they don't really have the skills, especially in AI, or the experience. What can they do?
So I would say instead of aiming for that perfect role, that perfect job, dream company, look at reframing your approach where you look for building a dream career over a period of time versus landing that dream job when you're so young and you don't know where to begin. Try not to look for every box that you want to tick. And I'm not saying settle, but shift your focus. You may end up in a smaller company, not that large company, but then when you get your foot in the door, start upskilling yourself.
I see.
Personally, I can just share, my son has been in the workforce for the last 2 years. He graduated just after COVID and the job market was very, very difficult at the time. And of course, as Asian parents, we want them to start with the dream company and dream job. And you must have
stay with it.
Stay with it and great backing of that great brand.
Yeah.
But my son has inspired me.
Oh.
He set out to look for what he can get, looking at the market around him. He's with a company for the last 2 years and he has been upskilling himself since then.
Within the company.
Within the company and also putting himself out there to make sure that he is investing in himself for skills of the future. So he's done certifications in the technical space. And he was not a technical person by education. He's a business management graduate. So I feel very inspired when I see someone like him who's young and who's just joined the workforce. If he can do it, so can others.
Wow. It's a very good reminder for all of us, even as we are working. We're not just working for the money, but we are working to gain the experiences and the competencies on the job. So taking up more work, for example, different kinds of work to expose ourselves and then getting some learning, formal learning around it. This is a great way to remain competitive in this market. Sumita, I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about how HR professionals find it's harder to find qualified people. Just now you mentioned that for a young person, you have to maybe not check off all the boxes. Is it the same thing for employers then? Is it for HR when they are putting out job descriptions, especially for roles like AI, sustainability, where we don't have 10 years of experience? Sometimes we see the job description, it looks really very daunting.
It looks like trying to find the perfect candidate.
They're looking for a unicorn.
There's
no
Iron
such
Man,
person.
Captain America, someone to save the world.
So do you think this is something that HR professionals they should also maybe have some realism in their job description?
You guys shouldn't also be trying to tick every box.
Okay, I'm going to say this is where AI can help. What I hear is that nearly 80% of HR professionals in Asia Pac say that AI is making it easier for them to find the right candidates externally, and they're even able to access better hiring tools that simplify the whole process. So when you are using AI tools, you're able to filter what you're looking for. You're able to filter when you're looking for the right balance of technical skills and soft skills. Otherwise, how are you going to find that needle in the haystack?
Yeah. But I guess like what Gerald said, if you're trying to be so prescriptive and looking for that right candidate that hits every single thing, even with the help of AI, you could come down to nothing. AI might actually say, sorry, 0 search results, right? So in that way, it's also about managing expectations that maybe not all of us have the skills that recruiters would want, right? But maybe it's to see that, okay, what are some non-negotiables? What are certain skills, whether is it hard or soft, that I must have in this employee?
I think if we were to look at AI to improve the recruitment process, right, AI has to be tuned towards more of not looking for exact matches because we are not going to find that person. We have to look deeper to look for the transferability of a person, the potential of a person. For example, looking at the adjacency of their skills to be able to see whether can they match to certain types of roles. So I give an example, right? Like I had a friend who used to be in the arts field, dancing, and during COVID, I think it became really difficult.
Yeah.
The whole art sector suffered, right? So as she was thinking about reskilling herself, or rather going to a new sector, the adjacency of her skills interestingly brought her to things like early childhood. Because the enrichment teachers there, they need to have certain ability to dance, to act, to perform. Being like a teacher is almost like a performer, right? Sometimes, okay? But
entertainer.
That's where she found that adjacency. And I'm just wondering, like, if AI can help with that kind of deeper sense making to point out this transferability, then this will really help recruiters not just look for the ready-made plug-and-play employee, but looking at somebody you can groom, you can tap on.
Absolutely. And I think, Gerald, you reminded me of an example which I personally experienced. So recently I was hiring for a role in my team. I had a very good pipeline of external candidates whom I met, and I also had an internal candidate who applied for the role. As a hiring manager, I really like people who demonstrate a curiosity and willingness to learn and very transparently share what they are missing. So this internal candidate blew me away when she demonstrated her willingness to learn and her hunger that she wants this job. She's seeing her name on this job. This job is hers. And she's willing to grow and learn. And she knew what she was missing. So from all the external candidates, I chose this internal candidate and she's part of my team today. If she's listening to this podcast, I think she's going to be very happy.
Now she knows why she was hired. She probably thought,
I've
I
told
wonder
her
why.
the story a few times.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
That she really stood out for me despite having a very good external pipeline.
Now let's talk about HR professionals finding it very hard to find qualified talents. So if I am one of these job applicants and I'm desperate for a job, how do I set myself apart from this sea of job applicants, essentially my rivals?
I think that's a great question and advice that I'm giving to a lot of young people these days. So first of all, keep your LinkedIn profile up to date with the skills that you have, with the courses that you've learned, with any certifications. You must keep your profile updated. I always say this to people who ask me this question. Be very intentional in your job search. You can't have one size fits all. Yes, you set the stage by saying you're desperate, but you don't know how to stand out from your rivals. I would say still, just take a deep breath. Don't have the same cover letter that you're sending to 20 different roles. Customize your cover letter, customize your resume to the job that you genuinely desire. Like I said, if you see your name written on a job, go for it. But go for it with intentionality and have a very strategic approach towards it. Don't apply to 50 jobs because you're going to get frustrated. Be very intentional. So that's the first thing on the softer side. From a AI perspective, I think there's a lot that younger people can do. Our job match feature actually allows you to see whether you actually match the job or how much you match the job. When you see the responsibilities or the qualifications, it tells you what you are missing. There's no point in applying for something for the sake of it and where you're missing a lot of things when it comes to the basic qualifications that the job requires and then feeling frustrated that you're not getting a response from the recruiter or that you got an automated response that you've been rejected.
Yeah, I think it's harder for HR professionals to find the right people, right? So maybe as a job seeker, if you're looking for a role, maybe go beyond the HR professional. You know, the personal touch still matters a lot. Internal people, they do listen a lot more to referrals. So that's certainly a direction that you should go, especially if you feel like I'm not the candidate that ticks off all the boxes.
Yeah.
Right? You feel like you're going to a job that you're not really qualified for, but you know you have the potential to do it. This is something you really want to. So with the kind of drive and clarity, start to tap on the personal touch, get a referral in, so that you put yourself in front of the HR person. As we always say, you don't want to be swimming with the rest of the competitors. You need to find a back door. You need to get ahead. You need to make yourself known. And of course, this comes after a really long and deep process of really knowing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
So as a job seeker, you kind of need to know what is it that you're looking for, communicate it out, put yourself out there. Then I think it will make it easier for people to notice you.
Yeah. I think we started this podcast with kind of a bit of a doom and gloom scenario where we're saying that, okay, there's a mismatch of hiring and people are feeling very frustrated on both ends, whether as a job seeker or as a HR recruiter. But just going through this conversation with both of you, I've learned as well that it's maybe when I was younger, I was searching for that dream job or that dream company. But you're right, the landscape has changed. And so what if you have hit that dream job? I did. I hit my dream job. And then after that, I was like, okay, I still have like the next half of my career. What am I going to do now? So in that sense, I agree with you that we need to see this as a dream career, because a career is the long term, is the longer haul, right?
Absolutely, Tiffany. If I look back at my own career, I think I've been working for more than 30 years, but my journey into HR really started only 18 or 19 years ago. And since then, I have definitely added skills like even listening skills or even influencing skills.
You don't need a certification for
You
that.
don't
though.
get certification for that, but you have to call it out that
Yeah.
you have these skills and you have to demonstrate
Yes.
that you have these skills. And HR is like where you are influencing all the time, but you don't necessarily have the authority. And so over a period of time, when I've looked at things like change management, communication, listening, even negotiating with some of my stakeholders on what we can do, what's in scope, what's out of scope, I think it's been fun. It just gives me a very warm feeling of looking back at my career positively, that I got guidance from some mentors, from friends, and I could add these skills to myself. And now, yes, I'm looking towards AI and sustainability as the skills for the future.
Wow.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Sumita, for coming on our podcast.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you
you.
so much for having me.
Welcome back to our Ask Me Anything segment, where Gerald and I will answer a work-related question that you have. Today's question was sent in by our listener, Amira. She recently made a career switch and joined the company in a senior role. Now, when she joined, she was partnered with somebody who has been in the company for a while, but she started realizing that this buddy was of no help to her, leaving her to figure out things on her own. Now, Amira says, later on, I learned that she has a reputation of being useless, quote unquote, and that my bosses were aware of this. I eventually told my manager that this was unfair and that no one should have to go through what I did. Amira wants to know, for those who may not have the confidence or privilege to voice their displeasure, how can they work around this issue? Gerald, want to start?
Firstly, this thing about raising up the feedback or confronting the issue, I personally don't know whether a lot of people would want to do that as a newcomer, because why there are a lot of thoughts in their minds when it comes to confronting. Especially as a newcomer, you feel like, okay, you're a new kid here, you're a new person here. People may not believe you. You also don't want to burn bridges that early on in your career. You don't want to be known as the complaint person. So I think this really requires some thought, some tact as well in how to manage the situation. Yeah, so maybe one of the things I would suggest, right, for a person who's going through this is to really consider whether there's a need to bring it up even.
Okay.
So for example, if the partner is just going to be with you for a short while, right, and then this person has very little effect on your work, on your performance, on the job, then maybe you might want to just let it go.
Okay.
Right? But then if, of course, this is a long relationship and there's direct impact to your work and this person is affecting you, then maybe you really want to think about the next thing. Is it worthwhile to talk to that person? Sometimes there are people who, when you speak to them, they will not listen. They will bear grudges, they hold offense. So you have to really sense what kind of a person this person would be. Would this person be willing to listen to feedback? And also, maybe do you even have the relationship with that person to give that sort of feedback? You can imagine if today the roles are reversed, the senior person, the other party, being longer in the company might say, what do you know?
Like, who are you to question me? Who are you to point this out?
Yes, exactly. So I think these are some of the considerations that we should have when we are thinking of how to handle this with tact and with thought.
I think another good place to try is to work with other colleagues. So other people in your team. So it may not be the person that you are partnered with. Other people in the team could also give you some guiding hands first to help you on board. Then you kind of build that opportunity over time to ask them like, oh, is it normal for me to figure this out on my own? And then you get a sense of what's going on. Like, am I overthinking things, right? That this person is a bit useless to me. Maybe there's not much of like handover that could be done. And maybe the other colleagues might actually feedback to you that, okay, yes, you're not crazy. This person is not the most helpful. And then they would perhaps come by and be your help.
Yeah, I think when we are just entering a new job, it helps to not just depend on one person.
Yes, for
but
sure.
really look at the people around you, especially nearest to you.
People who sit near to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. When I joined the new job, I made it a point to know the people in front, beside, behind me, know their names, and ask them like, where's the nearest toilet to go to?
Yes.
In the workplace, we often don't get to choose the people we work with.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we cannot choose our colleagues. So along the way, we really need to be able to adapt and to learn to work with the different styles of people. Because we cannot choose them, we cannot change them. One of the good ways is how do we blend in and how do we adapt together with them as much as possible. I also see this as a way of learning the uniqueness of each person in the workplace and learning to build that relationship so that you can have more allies in the workplace.
True. Well, Amira, thank you so much for writing in. I know that a lot of people who are in a similar situation would also appreciate that you have written in and asked this question. If, like Amira, you have a work-related question, do write in to us. We are at cnapodcasts@mediacorp.com.sg. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. The team behind the Work It podcast is Crispina Robert, Joanne Chan, Junaini Johari, and Saya Win. Sound mixing is by Kerry Lim, video by Reza Rahman and Hanida Amin.
I'm Gerald.
And I'm Tiffany. Here's wishing you a smooth work week ahead.